Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Hey everyone, Colleen Lyle here.
Hi, it's Sue Hamid here. It's almost 2 o'clock and we're just about to start our Facebook live feed.
So we're just kind of working out some technical issues and want to get everybody comfortable and let people chime in. So give us a couple of minutes as we work out a few people who are going to start chiming in. And we're not looking down at anybody short. We've got a couple of computers working today as well.
There we go. So it looks like we're good and everything is ready, and it's just about 2 o'clock. So we'll start by introducing ourselves. I'm Sue Hamid, a mortgage broker here in Ottawa.
And I'm Colleen Lyle. I'm a real estate broker also here in Ottawa. I'm also the team lead of my own Colleen Lyle real estate team.
Fantastic. So we're going to start today, and please feel free to chime in with any questions you have as we're chatting. We're going to start talking about the recent rule changes, the mortgage rule changes that came into effect.
Sorry, and we want to keep this casual, so I just want to go through, as people are starting to get comfortable, because we're just hitting 2 o'clock now, how we want to roll with this is the fact that we will be addressing conversations as they come into the feed. The goal today is to engage all of you. We want to connect with you. We want to keep this casual. We want you to feel comfortable. And if you have any questions either during the live feed or as well after, Sue and I will be watching as people chime in, and we will connect with you during that time. Also, in regards to the agenda, we'll probably be chatting for about 15 minutes, would you not say? Yeah, so we're going to be talking about the rule changes. We're going to be talking about buying a home, whether it's your first home or your last home, what the market looks like right now, talking about those steps of pre-approval, why use a realtor, etc. But again, this is about you guys, and we just want to engage in anybody who has questions out there. So very casual,
Absolutely, yeah.
And we just want to open up that conversation. So Sue, yeah, talk about the new rule changes that have confused a lot of people.
Everybody was confused at the beginning,
including the banks.
Including the banks, absolutely. Everybody was scrambling to figure out what is going on. So in October, the finance minister announced some new mortgage changes that will affect high ratio buyers, so anybody putting less than 20% down, essentially. And what was imposed was called a stress test. And the reason they imposed the stress test is to make sure that consumers are protected from future hikes in interest rates. So the affordability of the home. Of course, it caused a little bit of a shift in the industry and a lot of panic, most certainly with first-time buyers who feel like they might have been pushed out of the market. But the important thing to remember is to just have your numbers looked at, and there are other options. With the new changes, your purchasing ability goes down at about 20%. But there's other streams of income that we can use. If you're a young family with kids, perhaps, we can use child tax benefit, which can put you back up to where you were before the rule changes. So there's definitely lots of strategies and ways we can help.
Now, a lot of people, when I'm out there talking to sellers, talking to buyers, there's a little bit of nervousness about all this, Sue. Now, our thought as a realtor has different thoughts in it. Can you address to those people who are going, well, they're doing this because the Ottawa market is oversaturated, when in actual fact it was my understanding to address other markets, not ours.
Yeah, absolutely. The rule changes were primarily targeted at calming down the hotter markets in the country, which is Toronto and Vancouver.
Right.
But what I would say to people who are stressed or concerned about the new changes is it actually protects you more. So because you're being qualified at the benchmark rate, you're being protected and you're making sure that you can afford your home in 5 years or 10 years down the road if rates do go up.
And you know what? That's a great kind of leeway. You did it actually perfectly. When you're looking, if we're talking to, and if you're looking at your first time home, I sit down with, there are various steps that you should be looking at when you're buying your very first home. And the first and foremost is not stress yourself too thin. I have a joke with all my clients. I said, I don't want you eating craft dinner unless that's your thing. And if you want to eat crap dinner, at least have some red wine with it, right? Then
Exactly.
it's good, right? Or filet mignon with your crap dinner. We don't want you to be spread too thin. So steps to buying. Are you considering buying right now? Are you considering making that move? Well, we talked about, actually we were having a conversation today, rent versus buying.
Absolutely, yeah.
Did you want to talk about that a little bit, just quickly, about
Absolutely.
rent versus buying?
Yeah, so I had a client come in to see me who is currently renting at about $1,600 a month, and she's looking at buying a $200,000 single-family home in the outskirts. And once we ran the numbers and she qualified without an issue to buy, her mortgage payment is actually $700.
Yeah.
So she is really happy. She's saving a ton
That's
of money.
That's a lot.
I know.
That's a lot of grocery money.
Exactly.
I'm a mom of 3. That's a lot of grocery money.
Exactly. So in many cases, renting is a lot more expensive than buying, and you have to look at your options to get into home ownership. At least your money's going into something that you own.
Yeah, I mean, it's always worth that conversation, that sit down. So going back to that whole buying process, a lot of people are intimidated, and I think that it's really important when you are looking at buying a home. At any point, whether it's buying, selling, or investing, it's just really important to sit down with that realtor. Sit down with 3 or 4 different realtors that have been recommended to you and ask really important questions. Because at the end of the day, it's really important to trust the realtor, because you are going to be buying the most expensive, probably the most expensive asset that you have and will ever invest in. So if you sit down and then ask questions, and if you're watching this live or whether you watch it later and you want to know the top 10 questions to ask the realtor, I have a great video online, but also I'm happy to email those questions to you. But basically simple questions, how well do you know my neighborhood, the neighborhood that I want to purchase in, and sit down and create a 5-year plan. Because I think we can both agree that unless you are looking for an aggressive investment, that you really should not move. You should look at a 5-year plan. And when I sit down with my clients, you need to ask those personal questions. What does 5 years look like for you and your spouse, you and your partner? Are you having children? Are you having dogs? Are you making a major transition in regards to, I'm going to be changing jobs from east to west, so therefore that conversation. So it's always really important to forward think, as well as interview realtors that you click with, that you trust, and know that they have the experience behind them.
Absolutely, it's so important when you're especially a first-time buyer, when you're looking at different areas, to deal with a knowledgeable realtor, because the stats show that first-time buyers usually are out of the house in 3 to 4 years.
Yep.
And they're moving up to the next level because they've had kids or a growing family.
Yeah. And making sure then, what we find is that making sure that where they buy is the smart. Right, I'm very protective of the people, my buyer's agent as well as myself. We find that we have to make sure that if they know that they're going to be moving, they're going to have small children, they're going to have 2.5 kids in 3 to 5 years. You want to make sure that the purchase that you made is a smart one. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
So definitely always plan ahead when purchasing. And talk to professionals, because we're going to help guide you through that process, right?
So when you talk about buying a home, as it's a very daunting task, a lot of people don't know where to start. Let's talk about some of the pre-approval.
Absolutely. And so pre-approval is the number one most important step to take before you even pick up the phone and call a realtor or go shopping around.
Absolutely.
Right? You need to be able to understand what you can afford and what your maximum is, and what's a good decision for you financially as well. So in the pre-approval process, I'll talk to my clients about their long-term plan. If they're planning on having kids, one of them is going to go on mat leave or pat leave, then their income will be reduced.
Yeah.
So we talk about different scenarios over the year in the pre-approval so that going into the purchase they're comfortable. The most important thing with the pre-approval is to make sure that your entire scenario is being looked at, your credit's being pulled. I've heard too many times where they've done pre-approvals, they did not pull credit.
Oh no.
you've gone around shopping with them and they put an offer on a property and then we pull credit after the fact and they're not approved. So the pre-approval process is very, very important in being financially ready and stable. And even if you're looking at buying down the road in 6 months, 8 months, or even a year or two, I work with clients on
Absolutely.
a 2 or 3 year plan.
I'm glad you brought that up because that's really important. You know, when I talk to buyers and sellers, you know, it's not all of a sudden I've decided to buy a house and we need to look now. There is a planning process. We talked a few times even offline from the camera, and thank you for all the people who are joining us. Feel free to ask questions as we go on. About buying a car, changing jobs. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So the running joke is if you're going to buy a home, don't buy the car before
Don't buy
home.
the car. Don't buy that Porsche that you've been
Exactly.
pinned on your, as well as change jobs, right? You need to stay consistent.
Exactly, yeah. So the car loans are huge because I see car loans anywhere from $100 a month to $800 a month.
Ouch.
And if you're on the higher end of that, that can definitely damage your pre-approval numbers. And also with employment, of course. We have lots of different lenders who are flexible on employment. But just having a plan, if you know you're switching jobs, then you know you can purchase right after you switch jobs and you become full-time in the next one.
Very, you know, some really good points. You know, and again to all the people who are starting to jump in, so thank you. So we talked about some of the rule changes, and we talked to the prelim components of steps to buying, as well as as well as just the importance of really planning ahead. I think that's what we're getting at. Most importantly, is just really planning ahead, getting your ducks in a row. And the ducks in the row doesn't necessarily mean starting with open houses and running to open houses without representation. We've talked about that, and I think it's really important. We've talked about the investment. We've talked about this as major money. So I go into more now of the fact that we're now thinking of buying a house. We've now visited, you.
Yeah.
And got our pre-approval. Therefore, we manage our expectations, because there's nothing worse than running around to a house, falling in love with something, and realizing it might be 30, 40, a little bit stretched too thin. Because
Exactly.
you never want to people. You do not want to stretch yourself thin. It is better to have a smaller house that's more manageable, that allows you to go out for Friday night pizza. It's Friday night, so we're going out
Tonight.
to pizza. Yeah, exactly. And be able to, if you have children, contribute to Scholastics or their hot dog day, or whatever it is now.
And keeping in mind that the pre-approval process, the consultation is at no charge.
Yes, and that's really important
That's
to know.
probably one of the number one questions. And I guess same with you. I mean, people ask me all the time when I recommend they go talk to a realtor, what does it cost them?
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point. We are free. We come basically free. And so, you don't go to a dentist that sits on the corner of a street. So, right, you expect professionalism. And, it's really important when you're buying a home to use a realtor. Now, the typical question is, why use a realtor? So there are several reasons why. First and foremost, the biggest question I put out to all of you is the fact that, let's say someone were very unfortunately, was going to sue you, go to court, try and basically hurt you financially. You wouldn't go to the same realtor, to the same lawyer, to represent you at the same rate.
Right.
It's same as divorces. They don't use the same lawyer. So it's really important to find someone to protect you, because that is what we do. For when you are buying a home, we, under the very similar kind of code of ethics, we are there to protect you. We are there to protect your money, and we are there to keep everything that we talk about, depending on why you are looking at buying, it's very confidential.
So let's use an example.
Okay.
Let's say somebody is going to purchase a home private sale, and that home used to be a grow-up.
Yes. Ouch.
How How would the buyer find out if they were not using a realtor?
They wouldn't. They would probably find out, and this is where it goes very importantly to the fact that, the old adage, buyer beware, still exists.
Absolutely. Yeah.
For those of you who are chiming in, again, thank you so much. Buyer beware is very much something that is really important now because we are still in a buyer's market right now.
Absolutely.
And so you would only find out that it was a grow-up either from a really good building inspector or, unfortunately, when you can't close because finance will not usually cover grow-ups. So, the important things about using a realtor is the fact that not only are we there to protect you, we have the knowledge. I have sold hundreds and hundreds of homes and have the knowledge of certain things that if you're buying your first home or your 20th home, I still have promised you that I have bought and sold more homes than that. So working with you, finding the proper neighborhoods, maybe neighborhoods that you should steer clear from, or neighborhoods that I know might be devaluating in the next 5 years. It's also an advantage to use a realtor in the fact that we negotiate deals just like you every single day. And so, it's important to have someone there to protect your money. Also, the fact is that you're going to be ahead of the market. My buyer agent, many you know him, and a few of you online also know him. He hears all the time, I wanted that house, but I missed it. I was going online and I missed it. It's already conditionally sold. Did you know that if you're working with a realtor, not only is it free, but we get you ahead of the market? We have, currently right now, actually my team has 5 exclusive listings. And so those are listings that you as a general market can't see. So there's so many different advantages, as well as, heck, we're going to save you money.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think the main point is to protect yourself as the client. And that's what the professionals are here to do. We're here to protect you and your best interests at the end of the day. And we want to make sure that, you're in the right home, you're paying the right price for it, and you're financed correctly, of course. Long term.
That's a really good point, because when I'm doing market evaluations, sometimes I can see that when you have private sellers and a private buyer, we can clearly see that people have overpaid for a home. So we make sure that our clients, the experience, just like you, the experience should be a beneficial one. Exactly. And we assure all our clients, as I'm sure every realtor wants to protect our clients and make sure that they don't overpay for the house. When you're walking around unrepresented or unfinanced, you are risking a lot. You're risking to overpay, have a higher mortgage, as well as possibly buying a home that may be, at the end of the day, a financial risk for you. So that's a really big concern.
Absolutely. I think we have covered the A to Z of first-time buyers. And thank you to everyone who's tuned in.
Yeah, we've had some great audience members.
And we're going to post this video to watch afterwards. So if you're watching this as a recording, feel free to post your questions in the comments section. We'd be happy to answer them.
We're planning on making this a regular couple of weeks. So the next plan, tune in. Our next plan is probably in the next couple of weeks. So please stay tuned for that, because it looks like we'll probably be back. We're always going to be here on Fridays. We find that Fridays are a great day. People are taking a little bit of a
winding down for the weekend. Yeah, absolutely. And
taking up that pizza.
That's right. Yeah, before you go out for dinner for pizza. And we're going to be addressing lots of different hot topics. We're going to take questions throughout the weeks in between our videos. So feel free to send your questions in, and we'd be happy to answer them.
Absolutely. So rolling into the spring market, we're rolling into the weekend. So if you're planning on going to open houses this weekend, I think it's really important to reach out. A lot of people don't realize that we do answer our phones on Saturdays. It's really important to plan ahead. There are those open houses out there that you may not even know of, because again, you might be behind the market. So just driving around might be not the best use of time.
Excellent.
I think the next topic that I think we'd like to look at is selling your home and looking at downsizing or upsizing.
Absolutely,
I think
yeah.
we'll look at that in the next couple of weeks.
For sure, yeah. So we look forward to seeing everybody again in a couple of weeks. And don't forget to send in your questions.
Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great couple of weeks, and we'll see you in 2.
Have a great weekend.